Hello, hello, hello. It is Geek Speak. And today, wait, let me bring myself on screen. Today we are talking about web design checklist. So if you're creating a new website or you want to fix your old one, this one's for you. And you guys know me, I'm Pip. I run Seymour Digital Media, and this is Greg.
Hey everybody. As you all know, my name is Greg. I run Original 72 Creative, and we're a full-service website graphic design and digital marketing agency in Vancouver.
Right, and together, we run. Let me see if I can get this done right. Nope. Greg, I'm playing it together. Oh, it's just wait for it. There you go. Together, we run this wonderful group, and we love that you're here. Hey, Kat, Phelan, and Kelly, glad you joined us. I put something funny up on the screen. Now, Greg is going to have to go see it later, but it was a comment from last week.
Was it?
Yeah, it's funny. So I'm going to leave it on the screen until we get another comment that I can post, but I thought it was lovely. So for the rest of you Canadians out there, I think you'll enjoy it too. Kelly says he'll catch the replay. He's got an appointment. I totally get that, Kelly. We're going to dive right in, Greg, aren't we? This is a more Greg thing, guys, right?
Is it the Canadians are so friendly?
Yeah.
Why is that funny?
Because it was from last week, and I liked it. I don't know. Kind of funny. Hey, Kat.
I don't know.
I know. So let us know if there's any hiccups with the sound, because that's always helpful. And Greg, as I said, let's dive in.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of a checklist. I mean, it's just basically points when you're going through a new web design to sort of look at when you're in the process, what are you doing? So we're just going to go over 8 pointers that we've actually done in a previous Geek Speak, but we can expand on it today because we don't have to get through 35 points of whatever it was that we did on that other one.
So I don't know if you guys missed it, but we did. Yeah, I think it was like 28 points or something. Must have website from A to Z, and literally we didn't get through it all. So we broke it into 4 parts. Hey, Peter, glad you're joining. So as Greg was saying, it is a checklist though, Greg. It's a really good checklist. And if you're joining us and you have opinions, we want you to share them, but we have 8. So there's, should I name them all, Greg? Should we list them all quickly?
No.
Okay. Well, we won't then.
Leave people to anticipate what the final one will be.
The final one is my favorite, actually, which is really funny. We have
And it's something a lot of people don't even do. I don't know why any web designer doesn't just do this by default. It takes so minimal amount of time. It's one of those freebie things that I usually throw in and tell the customer, and they're overjoyed. So
right,
and it's so simple.
And now it's going to be more important than ever. So that's number 8 though, and we haven't mentioned it yet. Prosper is here from Ghana, West Africa. Hey, thanks for joining us. We so want to know more about you. And do you help make websites? So, Greg, number 1.
Yeah.
What's number 1 of our 8 points of what to do with a web design?
So, first and foremost, maybe because I'm a minimalist designer, I like to have a very clean design that represents your brand. So, what I mean by clean is sort of this point number 1 is almost a general point that will expand in the next couple of points.
Okay.
Describing what a clean design represents. But in general, we're talking about, in the old days we had sites. Well, we built them with tables, really old school. Everything was very tight and right next to each other, and there was not a lot of white space, and typically there was tons of color, lots of information, and it looked really cluttered.
There's flashing.
You don't want to do that. You want to, like with today's big monitors, we have the ability to space things out and lay them out in a manner that is much more pleasing to the eye, and will get us better results in how we present to the people, because they'll be looking at the things we want them to look at the times we want them to look at it. So white space and clean and minimalist is always a better way to go, in my opinion, than having a lot of things that are going on that will just confuse the user.
Now, let me ask you this. Are you influenced by today's design? Like, I mean, because, 4 years ago, or when you say minimalist, have you always been a minimalist about web design?
Probably deep down, yes. But I mean, I'm that old school web designer who, was doing it close to 20 years ago, and we had only the things we had to work with back then, and screens were much smaller, so things had to be way more compact. If you wanted it to be on the screen and presented to the users, it was just natural back then to do it in the styles that we had back then.
Right.
Now we have so many different tools to make things look beautiful and space things out because the monitors are so big. And over those 20 years in my career, you've just learned so many different things about how people use websites, or how they want to use websites, where to put things, and how to do layouts. So
Interesting. Well, it's also funny because I don't know if originally they did any comparison with. We know how the eye works. We know what the eye sees in an area, right, and where the eye goes to first, second, and third. Let me just say hi to a couple people, Greg. If you haven't seen them, Mona's here. Gwen is here. Vincent's joining us, and Mona's saying mobile but listening. Yeah, you are. And hey, Gwen. Okay, so we got, guys. Number one point Greg mentioned is clean. So we're going to get more into what that really means, because nobody likes a client that says, I just want a clean design, right? I don't know. I think it's hard to understand, but Greg's going to dive further. Greg, we got a number 2.
Yep.
This one's a good one, actually. I like that you put this down. You want to mention what it is?
Yeah, number 2, use of contrasting colors. So like I expanded on a little bit for point number 1 is the colors. Sometimes, your brand may have many colors. It should probably only have a set, maybe 2, 3 core colors that you stick with. But when you're working in design, web design, or any other design, you want to have a good use of contrasting colors so that things pop off the page more.
Right.
Your color with white text.
So here's one of my big issues with this, and I see it all the time, and it bugs me because it's hard to see, and because it really negatively affects people who have any impairment online, and that's yellow and white together. I find it a big no-no. Now, as a designer, are you saying that's a no-no too? Like
using white text on a yellow background?
No, yeah, or white background with yellow text. It's really hard to see.
I mean, white background with yellow text, it depends on the yellow. You might be able to get something dark enough, but reverse, probably not.
So anybody with an impairment, though, can't actually see the difference in the colors.
Right. And by contrast, we're talking really about, you need a dark enough color and a light enough color to have matched if you're using them on top of each other, right? You can't have 2 different colors that are so similar that when you put them on top of each other, they're difficult to read. So there needs to be a large enough contrast within those 2 colors to be able to actually read them if they were on top of each other.
I like that. I like that. That is okay. I like that. So we got one is clean design, and so contrasting colors that are separate. So how would people pick these colors? Do they ask their designer, or if they have logo colors, do they change them if they're not right?
Well, most good designers will be able to use colors and match colors that will work for a design. They obviously have to work within your corporate colors, but don't tell your designer that you want to use some random color on top of one of your corporate colors. Let your designer
Help you.
create the design. Yeah.
Designers are there to help. That's why there's
Designers are
careers,
there to make things look good for you.
right?
And
Right.
just because you want it doesn't mean it's going to look good.
And that, yes, that is very fair. I am not a graphic designer, and there is good reason, you know. Um, so okay, we have number three. What is number three? Hey, Jessica's here, I think. Number three is readable, easily readable font. Now,
Yeah. So for fonts, I mean, like you were talking earlier, for visually impaired or even text on a color, you could actually have a good font or good color, contrasting color with your text over it. But depending on that color, if you're using like a super ornate, swirly, script font, it may be much more difficult to read as opposed to having a sans serif block font with the exact same contrasting colors. So you don't only have to think of the colors that you're using, you have to think of the fonts that you're using as well and how readable those fonts are within your designs.
so
Um,
here's the thing. What if I think it's readable, but other people like, so because I'm some things I've seen people use these script fonts and I never understand it, and I always want to reach out and be like, dude. But maybe I just have trouble seeing, like maybe it's just me, right? Because can't they see it? What's the deal?
well, they can see it, but reading it may be different than actually seeing it. I mean, certain fonts are just easier to read than others. So you wouldn't want your entire site made up of a font that is more difficult to read, because people don't want to, like, if they come to your site and they start reading and they're like struggling to read what your site is saying, why are they going to stick around?
Yeah.
Make it easy for them to read what you've got on your site, get your message across, and use the ornate stuff maybe for just headings, words. Those types of things you can keep larger on the screen. They won't be as difficult to read because they are larger, and you have a little bit more flair in your design.
Okay, so with this, are there specific fonts like that you should avoid, or are there fonts that mostly everybody uses for reading fonts? Like, is it Sanskrit or sans serif?
Um, no, I mean, as far as the specific fonts go, no, I tend to only think serif and sans serif, and then display or script handwritten fonts.
Okay.
But typically, what I'll do in a design is I'll pick two fonts. One will be a serif and one will be a sans serif, and it doesn't matter to me. I don't feel as long as you pick two that are easy to read.
And one's for the
Which
headings.
one you actually use as your main or your secondary. But typically having one of each will match well within your design.
Okay, so what I'm hearing so far is 2 to 3 colors and 2 to 3 fonts. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do more than 2 to 3 colors.
I like that. I like that. But I think that's going to the clean design, right?
It also depends on what your corporate colors are. Like Google has what, the red, the blue, the yellow, and the green
White.
And well, white, I don't consider white a color within a design. White and black I don't consider as colors within the design.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And gray I don't gray and yeah, black
Huh.
definitely not. So the other colors are your corporate colors.
Ah.
Um,
Okay. Huh. I get that. Okay. And hey, Sherry's here. Yay, Sherry. Sherry just had a baby and it's
mm,
2 months old. She's so cute. Anyway, enough of that. We're going on to number 4. We're good for time, sort of. Uh, Greg, number 4. Who?
yeah, number 4 has to do with navigation of your site, and you want to make it clear and have it be logical to whatever you're putting on your site. I'm not a fan anymore of like we used to stuff every menu or every page in the menu at the top. Those days are gone. There's no need to have every page in your navigation. Um, you want to have your main stuff, the stuff that you really want people to get to, your services or products in your main navigation, and things like about, you know, FAQs,
Mm,
other resources for customers that are not salesy things don't need to be at the top in the menu for everybody to get to. If someone comes to your site, you're using this as a business tool to try to tell people what you have to offer.
mm.
So why would you lead at the top with, you know, that stuff that doesn't tell people what you do? You want to capture them and you want to tell them this is what I can do for you. Once they get interested in what you do, they'll go exploring the rest of your site, go to the footers where there's other menus to find out more about you and
Interesting.
company history, whatever it is.
Well, that's funny because you answered one of my questions. And hey, Katie, Katie's here. Katie actually, I think, builds websites. She's out of Abbotsford, I believe. I could be a little off on the area there, but so I was going to say, well, where else do you put these things? And if you're not putting them in the header, does that mean like are they in the drop down menu, or are you just putting them in the footer? What do you think? Footer's better.
Well,
Sounds like.
the drop down menu is part of the main navigation
Mm,
at the top of your page. But I'm referring more to the fact that you build pages. All of your pages that you build should have additional links to other things on your website. They don't need to be in that menu at the top of the page.
that's
They
true.
need to be they need to be accessible
Mm.
easily to
Well,
people when they go places, but they don't necessarily need to be in that top navigation.
Well, and what do you guys think out there? Do you think, because do you think the same thing? One thing I was going to mention here, and I agree with you. I always see a lot of websites, they have too many things, and it's almost option overload, right? You get paralysis. You're like, I can't find it. I'm out. But so I think, but the about page is technically on most websites the second most. So that goes home and then about. So if you don't have that in the header menu, I wonder if it's still the page. And if people don't find it, do they bounce? You know, bounce, guys. You get to say that. It's kind of fun. But do they like? Yeah, so that's really interesting because I kind of like the idea of not having like uncluttering that navigation.
Personally, I don't have any statistics on that. However, myself, if I went to a website because I was intrigued to go check these people out and I didn't see an about us in the top menu, it wouldn't make me leave the site. I mean,
Mm,
I'm still curious who they are and I would be interested in what they do and I would find that information and then eventually most likely find the about
yeah.
information.
I think I might actually go hunting for it because that's the second place I want to go. It's funny how design kind of changes over time, right?
Think about it when you're in the real world. When you walk by a store on the street, you know, Fourth Ave in Kitts or Robson on in downtown. If you see a store, you're walking by and you're like, oh, that stuff looks cool. You go in and you start looking at their product. You don't
Mm,
go into a store going, who are these people?
mm,
I want to know about this company.
mm. Yeah, it's funny because the About Us page is also supposed to be positioned that it's about the client, not necessarily about you. But however, I do like to see the people on the About page. I know we don't have it on our About page, but at the bottom, I kind of want to see who I'm working with. Just like, when I buy stuff, I want to know. I know I'm a nosy Parker, but I want to know if the owner is serving me or if you're a worker bee, like, and I mean, but that's about small communities too. I could talk, Greg, I could talk about menus on websites for hours. Can you guys say the same? I mean, maybe it's a marketing thing, I don't know, it's a little painful. But we don't have time for me to dive in. We have 9 minutes and we're on 5 now. So I'm going to jump to the next one. If you have any opinions on navigation stuff, we want to hear, drop it in the comments. Greg, number 5.
Good use of white space.
Mm,
Yeah, like I said at the very beginning, the clean design. We have the luxury of being able to use all of the screen real estate
mm,
uh, on desktop to have lots of white space. So the elements on the page and the message that you want to get across are clear, and people understand what's associated with what's different from another thing, and because it's not all compact. So white space in design is key to being able to present information to the user, so that they don't get confused about the relationships of the things that you're putting on your website.
ooh, that's important. So not confusing your user, that's huge, right? And how many of us have been on a website and got confused? Now, I'm not saying my website might not. My website could be confusing. So I don't know. Like, yeah, but we generally leave if it's confusing. I like that white space idea. So, but does that mean, how it used to be where on the header, the header would go to the very edges, yeah? Or it used to be like where it was a box out where there was white on the sides too. So,
I mean, designs still have both types of elements, but what we're able to do is use more screen real estate because people are using them on their computer with much larger windows. So design-wise, sometimes they are still contained within a certain amount of space, but even that contained box in the middle of the screen still has more real estate because the monitors are so big. Uh,
interesting.
I think it's more a preference thing with the customer on whether or not they want to see things stretch all the way across or have things contained in a box. Whether you're using background colors or patterns or large images in the background, those typically you want them to go all the way edge to edge to fill the screen, and then maybe your main content is contained in the middle.
I get that. Okay. I like that. I really like the clean feel of things, actually. Oh, Grim's joining us too. Jessica made a comment about going back and forth about menus. Hey, Grim, or anyone else out there, really give us opinions on the menu stuff because I want to know what you think. And so now we're on number 6. Number 6, Greg.
Yeah, number 6, mobile ready version. And actually to consider mobile first, which what that means is that when you're designing sites, typically we've always designed for people looking on their computers, but stats show more and more that people are using their mobile phones or almost equally to look at your sites. So because mobile you're looking on your mobile phone, internet might not be as fast.
Did you hear that? There's a plane. There's a plane. Seaplane, guys.
You want to consider building the site mobile first, so less assets load for those people that are browsing on your mobile device, and scale up to people who are looking at the site on a PC or
Interesting,
Mac.
right? Now, I know Kat's here. Kat is just actually going to be launching a new website for her company. So I think this is a good discussion. And maybe she'll tell us what she's going to do. Now, I like the mobile first ready version. I know in Search Console, if you guys ever log in there, a lot of people are getting a little pop-up box that says, we're indexing you for mobile first. Now, there's a couple weird things about the mobile first, though, which I think are neat, is that more conversions happen still on a desktop. So, but I guess the buyer journey, or yeah, is going from phone to desktop and back and forth now. So mobile first, yeah, and you can test this in Search Console. So if you guys want the link to test your site for mobile, we'll drop that in today. And Greg, that was a good one. Okay, 7. Oh my God, and 8 is the best. And hi Maria, 7, Greg, 7.
7 is well-written code with semantic markup. So
That's deep.
I mean, the standard web standards change constantly, right? Like I mentioned earlier, we used to build sites with tables and no CSS or only inline CSS. And so over the years, the standards change, they improve, they allow us to do things more easily and more fancy things. So you want to make sure that your site, so if you're in the market to buy a template, for instance, if that's your budget, you're looking at designs on ThemeForest or any template website.
Don't go to ThemeForest.
You don't want to, wherever you go to buy a theme, you don't want to buy a theme that was developed, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, even 4 years ago. It's built with standards of when it was built. And if it was never upgraded, you may like the design. It may be great, but you'll probably find a design that's very similar that would have been built in the last year and would have proper semantic markup in there and using all of the current web standards to, and this will help also for SEO because if your site's not built right and you're not presenting the content in your website with the right markup, it will affect your SEO score. So just keep that in mind when you're this is more, I guess, for people who buy templates, because there are templates out there that you can find and that were built, 4 or more years ago.
Yeah.
Be wary of buying those. Look for something that's more current, and the web standards will be more current. If you're getting a developer like me to do it, we're just using the current standards, and it'll be great.
Amazing. Well, the other thing is, and Vari, she's in the group too, she mentioned this, if you're hiring a designer and you're a business and you need a new website, often good to get your SEO done at the same time. Yes, so either have a designer and an SEO person, or have the designer be able to do SEO, right? Search engine optimization. Now, before we move on from this number 7, which is a big deal, Greg, what is semantic markup? Let's explain that quickly.
Okay, semantic markup is basically specific code that's in the HTML to relay more specific information about your business, your services to the search engines, the robots that are coming, as well as there's semantic markup that assist with visually impaired, hearing impaired. So
here's the thing, and you guys probably already know.
It's not something you can see. You can't see the semantic markup, but it does make a difference.
Right, it does make a huge. So I think we all think, that computers can read, or bots can read, the text. This is a store. but they can't. They don't know when you put your hours on your website that those are your hours. They don't know that that's your address. So Markup helps explain to the bots that this is an address. This is the hours. Anyway, we are okay. We're gonna go a minute or two over because this is a good one and a big one. You've all been waiting for this, right? It's number 8. What is it, Greg?
Put a fav icon in your site.
Right.
So the fav icon has been around forever. Its support in browsers has been iffy in how you implement it and how the browsers use it, but it's pretty standard these days. Almost every browser that you're going to use will show the fav icon. Mm-hmm. It used to be that it needed to be a specific file type, a .ico mm-hmm. file type, and they were more difficult to make. But now they can be a GIF or a JPEG or a PNG file. I typically make mine in PNG format.
They're just like a mini version of your site that when you open a site, I love when the little tab has the little logo, right?
Yeah, and it's just a graphic, like it's just a small graphic, a square graphic, and you make them at a certain size and set them up so that it'll display. So when you go to your site, your little browser tab will have your little fav icon. Fav icon stands for favorite icon.
I love that. And the other thing is now it's so because Google wants to kind of not confuse people so much, just confuse people. So when you go to Google now and you search, your icon, your fav icon can actually show up in the search like results page. It's the same size as their little thing that says it's an ad at the top beside ads. Anyway, Sash is here. Yay, Sash. And guys, we're over time like usual. Always get really, gosh, I know, Greg, I know we could talk about this stuff for hours, right?
I think we got through that pretty quickly.
We did. Eight and a couple minutes each. Sash, so glad you're here. Sash, you missed it. Come back, make comments. I asked a ton of questions. Favs are such a small thing that makes such an impression.
That's exactly what I said at the beginning. Like, yeah, you wouldn't imagine how excited people get when they see that little thing, and it's so simple to do. Right?
It makes the world. So we got 8. So should we run through them quick? It was clean design that represents your brand, contrasting colors, easy and readable font, clear logical navigation, mobile ready, well-written markup semantic code, and favicon. That was it. That was pretty good. So Sash says she's always like, Greg, before we're out of here, thank you. Let me first and foremost say thank you for putting that list together. I know it's really going to help people like me. So
I hope so.
Put this in your pocket, guys. This is something to use if you're building a new website. I'll stop yelling. And Greg, do you know what next week is? Ooh, next week's a good one. Do you know?
We have a guest.
We have a guest. Oh, you're cloudy. Oh, Facebook's breaking. We do. We have a special guest. You guys are going to be, she's part of our group, and her name is Sally. She has her own group, and she does Facebook advertising. So this is going to be our big chance to ask lots of questions. She is super good at her job, and we're going to dig in. I'm going to make a post, and so you guys can pop in your questions, and then we can try to answer them. If we don't answer them on the live, we'll make sure to answer them somewhere. But anyway, Greg, that was super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. He says,
awesome.
In a stoic, calm manner. Anyway, we went the distance, guys. We went the distance. We will see you next week. Please, if you're catching the replay, make some comments, share some love. And Greg, I'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Bye.
for coming.